Welcome to the Lia Andrews Show. I am very happy to introduce Miss Fani Weingarten. She is an amazing woman, an amazing businesswoman, and before all of her accomplishments, she also survived Auschwitz as a young child.
Yes. Survived Auschwitz at the age of 10. And I'm the only one alive today. I'll be 81 this July.
Wow, that's amazing.
Yeah, it has been rough.
Yeah.
But I'll show you one video that I have, which was very amazing, that after all of that I have gone through, I was able to pull myself together. I had a career. You know, I worked for Greenspan, the ex-Federal Reserve Chairman.
Yes.
For 8 years, and then I worked for other people also. I had my own factory, and we had 320 employees.
Wow.
And so it was quite amazing.
Yeah.
I skied, I swam, I skydived, I did
Wow.
everything. So
And you were a gymnast.
yeah, I was a gymnast.
Wow.
I was a gymnast at the age of 5.
Wow. Okay, so
I was trained for the Olympics for 6 years. I used to do the floor exercises and then jump, do 7 somersaults in the air.
Wow.
So, but I couldn't go because I was Jewish. Anyway, so Jews could not go to the Olympics.
Wow.
Jews could not have a license for business. You know, my father was a rabbi. He was an honorary rabbi. And we lived in Brno, in Czechoslovakia, and we were uprooted. One day, some soldiers came in and they said, in 15 minutes you pack up everything, what you can, and we are going to the ghetto.
Wow.
And so what could you take in 15 minutes, half an hour?
Yeah. That's amazing. So Ms. Fani, did you have any warning before, like did you know things were getting bad before they showed up at your house?
Did we have, well, as I said, it started that first Jews had to register.
Okay, so you had some...
You had to register and then then they took away your licenses because in Europe you needed a license for business.
Yes.
My father owned 2 streets in the second largest city of Czechoslovakia, so we were quite well to do. You see my house.
Yes.
In Czechoslovakia.
Okay.
So anyway, then they took away your business, your bank book, your house, and then they took you to ghetto.
Wow.
And from the ghetto, that was already, broken up because men were in 9 families lived in one house.
Wow.
Yeah. So, but that was paradise in comparison to Auschwitz.
I bet. I can imagine.
When we came to Auschwitz, that is something no one can describe. What you felt first was burning grease and flesh.
Oh my God.
And then the ashes, you became very gray because the ashes from the crematorium were flying all over. So all the buildings, the cars, everything was gray, and you yourself were gray.
Yeah.
And those were the remains from. Now the Germans used the fat to make soap, and it said it was sold all over Europe. It was RJF, means pure Jewish fat.
Wow.
And it's sold all over. They made, from human skin, they made lampshades and pants. And Mengele had a pelvis for an ashtray. And for a decoration on his ceiling, there were 4 decapitated heads that he did himself, and they were there as decoration.
Wow. So how long did you spend in Auschwitz?
Well, I was 2.5 years total.
Wow.
I was 8 months in Auschwitz. Then we went to a munition factory where we worked 18 hours a day. And then when the Allies started to come near, they kept taking us further and further into Germany, so we shouldn't be liberated.
Yes.
And the order was that they have to take us as far as they can, and at the end everybody has to be shot. There shouldn't be one living person after that. He wanted to have a Jew-free Europe.
Wow.
Yeah. So that was the order. Now in Auschwitz, where my father was liberated, he worked in a chemical factory. You know that Hitler had a chemical, for his chemical warfare, they produced a poison, it was called taboo. One drop on your skin either killed you in 1 minute or sooner.
Wow.
So the IG Farben, you heard about them. No, IG Farben is the third largest chemical company in the world.
Okay.
And they made the warfare, the chemical warfare for Hitler. And in fact, they supplied the cyclone gas for Auschwitz.
Wow.
In Auschwitz, every 7 minutes, 1,285 people were gassed, 24 hours a day for I don't know how many years.
Wow.
So in Auschwitz alone, 4 million people were gassed. 4 million.
Wow.
Yeah.
It's unbelievable.
And sometimes, they wanted to be very saving. They wanted to save, so they didn't want to give too much gas to die. So sometimes they were half alive, burned in the crematorium. And they had a system. You see, before Auschwitz, it was very uncomfortable. They had to shoot people, and how many people can you shoot? And what you do with the corpses was very unpleasant. So they had to create an Auschwitz that was a killing factory.
Wow.
It was the floor of the crematorium was on wheels, and they wheeled in the bodies, the dead bodies into the crematorium where they were burned.
My goodness.
So that was going on 24 hours a day, I don't know for how many years. So anyway, my father worked in one of those chemical factories.
Wow.
The Germans, when they came in, they had double rubber suits for protection, and the inmates worked unprotected. So they all got maimed, they got they were lung problems, and they got infections, and they got paralyzed.
Wow.
So my father worked in one of the factories there, and he got an infection of the kidney. It became cancerous, and that's what he died from after the war. Wow. But anyway, he was in the hospital, in the so-called hospital, where they didn't do anything, but they just had a bed where you sat. And when they were before they were liberated, was the death march, which meant everybody was marched out, and they shot everybody because there were very few people left. And my father couldn't walk anymore, so he was left on the bed. And they thought he's going to die soon anyway, because he was too sick to walk. So that's how he got, and about 2 or 3 hours later, the Russians came in and he was liberated.
Wow.
That's how he stayed alive.
And where were you at that point?
Really, there were 3 reasons, 3 occasions that I was saved. Namely, we were standing appel means that we were counted in a row of 5 from 4 o'clock in the morning till 10 o'clock in the morning, and from 4 o'clock in the evening till 10 o'clock in the evening. 4 o'clock in the afternoon. Now, they were counting us. If, God forbid, one person was missing, and nobody was missing because you couldn't run away, you couldn't go anywhere, because, there were electric wires between each camp. But let's say somebody got sick, and they took her to the gas chamber, and they forgot to deduct her, so that's where the missing. Then came dogs with, they were barking and with all kinds of leather straps, you know. They came and they were looking for a person where the person is not missing. So anyway, every day they were counting us twice a day. And it was always a question that should I be on the right side or on the left side of the 5, you know, pieces? Because if the German passes on the right side, I would be taken out as a kid, you know, immediately. Or should I be placed on the left side? Where is he going to pass by? But sometimes they were hiding me in the middle and they were standing a little bit crooked that I shouldn't be seen. Because as a child, I would never survive.
So what would they do to you if they found you as a child?
If they found me, they just take me to the gas chamber and I was cast with all the other kids. However, one day, I also should say that we were 1,000 people in one barrack, and there were 32 barracks, so in each camp were 32,000 people, and they were counted every time. So the one that was in charge of the barrack was actually Jewish. She was given a little bit more bread and better quarters, and for that she had to treat us just like the Germans. Now, one day the German passed me by, the one that was counting, and she said, "Officer, you just passed a child." So they take me out of the row, and my mother was screaming and what to know of it. Was taken out. At the end, they took us they took out a few children that they selected, and they took us to the children's barracks. The children's barracks was no longer fed because they were going to be gassed anyway, so it was not worthwhile to feed.
Yes.
So they were there for a few days already, and they were screaming, they were yelling, you know, they were hungry, and, you know, kids.
Yeah.
And they want to go to my mother, I want to go to my mother, and, you know, so that was going on in the children's barrack. Anyway, I was given a place on the 3rd row of the beds, you know, in each bed that was as big as from here to that column, 7 people one way and 7 people the other way, 14 people were in such a bed. And it was wood, but the woods were not together, so, you know, you were skinny, and so if your body fell through between 2 woods, you got scratched because it was, you know, not finished wood.
Yeah.
So anyway, I was up there, and please have one.
Oh, no, I'm good.
Please.
Okay, one second.
So anyway, I was put up there, and I went to that woman who was in charge of this barrack. I said, "Listen, I left my mother back there, and she was screaming. She wouldn't make it without me. Can you do something to get me back?" And she made like this to her ears, like she didn't hear, and she passed by. But half an hour later, she came back, and she told me, "I never saw you, I never talked to you, but I'm telling you, I'm going to leave the door open for half an hour. And if you want to, you can run, let them shoot you, what do I care?" But under her nose she said, "You can't lose anything because tomorrow we all go to the gas chamber." So anyway, I ran, and the spotlight just passed me with a hair, because if they spot me, you know, they shoot me right away. So I was running, and I ran back to my mother. She squeezed me so hard to the bed. Anyway, that was one how I escaped, you know, death. And next time we went to see that barrack, it was completely empty. Nobody was there. Whenever they accumulated about 1,000 children, when they were all there, then they took them to the gas chamber. And together with the woman that saved me, actually.
Oh, they took her too. She was killed.
She too, everybody went to the gas chamber. So that she should not be able to tell the story. She too. So they were changing them every few months. So anyway, that was one time that I escaped. The second time, I have had it. I didn't want to suffer anymore, and many people that got very depressed, and they grabbed the electric wire and they blew up like a balloon, and they were yellow and green and lilac and terrible, and then they took them down and they all died. So I decided one day that I have had it. I don't want to go through anymore the same, hunger and starvation and torture and everything. So I said, and it will be better for my mother because she would always try to come back, and they could still select her for work and she could still get out of Auschwitz and live. But if we'll be together, she'll always want to come back and she will die too. So I went, in the middle of the night, I told my mother, I'm going to get some fresh air. Mm-hmm. She said, fresh air in the middle of the night? Yeah. So I went, grabbed the electric wire, and I am thinking, and I'm holding it tight, and I'm thinking, this is how dying is? It's so easy, you don't feel anything. Or are people so scared of it? Pinching myself, and I see I am still alive. And so after 10 minutes, I just left the electric wire, and I came down, I went back to my mother. There were 3 occasions in Auschwitz that there was no electricity in the wire. One was when they were making a new camp, and then they had to take off the wires. Then they were repairing something, and this time I don't know what it was. But there was just no electricity in the wire, and I just couldn't die. Yeah.
Wow.
So that was another occasion. And the third time, how I really got out of Auschwitz, after what they were doing, they were putting a lot of people in this camp. And, it was not such an exact selection. So from these, they made selections every week, every so often. They made selections, and they took out the people that were still good to work. Anybody below 17 and above 35 was useless for the cause.
Wow.
So anything in between, and if they were healthy looking, good looking, then they selected them to work in some of their factories. Because, Hitler's men and women were all at the front. He started, toward the end of the war, even kids were soldiers. So everybody was at the front, so there was nobody to man their factories. So they used slave labor. They used us for it. And so whoever was not useful anymore, and was left over, they took us all to the gas chamber. And they were putting us in the gas chamber, very tight, and there was no room to move. And I was thinking, and then the door was shut, and I was thinking, how is it going to be dying to suffocate? And I'm waiting. Nothing happens. And all of a sudden the door opened of the gas chamber. That also never happened. Once the door was shut, that was it. So the door opened, and there were about 5 or 6 men dressed normally, not in uniform. And they came from one of their factories that they need 1,500 workers. Now, rather than for them to go and select 1,500 people, they just took us out. And they gave us a warm shower that we didn't have for 8 months. And they put us out in the yard because they didn't have clothes for us, because whoever came out of the gas chamber didn't need any clothes before. So we had a warm shower. It was December. They put us out in the yard, wet, naked, and my feet were frozen to the ground.
I bet.
Between 1,500 people, nobody sneezed. Nobody sneezed. We were there all night. You know, the icicles, I just took it off from my body. And we were there all night, and in the morning they brought us clothes. We got dressed and we were put on the train to go to that factory. Now that's how I got out of Auschwitz. I would have never had the chance to get out.
And this was with your mom? Your mom was with you?
Yeah, that was my second mom. My first mom was, she was young. She was 29. I was 10, she was 29. My grandmother was 49 and my grandfather was 52. So we were all young people, but they were over the 35 limit. So my mother was okay, but she had a sister and she had 3 babies, and she was helping her to hold the babies. So when she went in front of Mengele, and she had the baby, whoever had the baby, you know, was right away gassed. So they saw that she was healthy and good looking. They said, give the child to that old woman. And she said, how can I give the baby to the old woman? It's my sister's baby. So he said, okay, you two go. So that's how she went. Now, when we came to Auschwitz, you know, you were processed. They shaved your hair completely, and they shaved you everywhere. They disinfected you with some whatever, and they gave you had to undress, of course, and you had to leave out your clothes, everything, just your shoes you could take. So if you were tall, they gave you a short dress. If you were short, they gave you a long dress. So they gave you a dress, only one dress, nothing else, no underwear, nothing. And you were processed. So as I was walking around in the camp, you know, a kid alone, came a woman and she said,
Do you want to take a break?
it's okay. She said, where is your mom? And I said, my mom went on the other side. It meant she was killed.
Yeah.
She said, I'll be your mom from now on.
Wow.
She was my mom for 70 years.
Wow.
So that is the mom. When we came home from the concentration camp, my father married her, and she was my mom for 70 years. I'll show you. So that was how I got out of Auschwitz. We had one slice of bread. In the beginning, I didn't eat it because it tasted like soap.
Yeah.
You know, it was rancid,
Yeah.
most probably rancid flour, and it tasted terrible. But later on, it was delicious.
Yeah.
You know, you were very hungry. So it was one slice of bread, and in the evening they gave you a little tea with real sugar. I mean, there was sugar in the tea. And then they had a soup. It was full of stones. Once in a while, a green leaf would swim. But they didn't put any salt. And the minute that you drank it, you had to go to the bathroom to urinate. And they made curfew. They didn't let you go for 5 hours. So people suffered. They wanted to relieve themselves. Anyway, I decided instead of rather to suffer, I wouldn't eat it. So I had one slice of bread and one glass of tea. Now, I gave half of my bread to my mother always because she was more hungry than I was.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
So, and we came to this munition factory. It was a normal building, not, a camp. It was just, and everybody had a bed for himself. There was a mattress and a cover. We didn't have that. We thought we were in paradise. And they gave us a little bit more to eat, and we worked 18 hours. And, then it was, I don't know if you heard about Dresden, it was bombed apart. Okay, we were right near Dresden, and when there were all this bombing, then we liked it very much because we didn't have to work. So I was laying in the grass, and I looked at the bombs falling. What to me was like fireworks. I was a kid,
Yeah.
So now I was, my job, they asked me what I know, and said that I know how to teach math because my grandfather taught me. He was my educator, really. He taught me how to add, subtract, multiply, and divide at the age of 4. By the age of 5, I knew all the tables by heart. When I came to school, they put me right away 3 years higher class because I already knew all the stuff.
Yeah.
And so I said, I at the age of 6, there was a whole other story that I'm not going to tell you, but I wanted to go to Hebrew school, and at that time, Jews didn't want to study the modern Hebrew because very religious Jews waited. They had the idea that Messiah has to come to Jerusalem and build it himself. You couldn't go and build your Jerusalem. So that's why we went to Auschwitz. Anyway, my father said, you cannot go to Hebrew school. And I said, every day I kept saying, I want to go to Hebrew school. And so he said, just to get me off, he said, if you earn your own tuition, then you can go.
Okay.
So anyway, there was a boy who needed tutoring. He in the 3rd class because he failed, and so I applied for the job at the age of 6.
Okay. Well.
So I got the job, and I was teaching him, and I said I don't want to get paid, only if he passes. So he passed, and they wanted me to keep on tutoring him, and I said, no, I only needed that much, as much as I needed for the tuition. So I came to my father and I said, I have now my tuition.
Wow.
Then I go to Hebrew school. He couldn't imagine that a 6-year-old kid is going to, especially you think of it 80 years earlier, So anyway, I was already independent then.
Yeah, amazing. So you got to go to Hebrew school?
Yeah, I got to go to Hebrew school, and I was at that time a Zionist. I wanted to go to Israel to fight for Israel. So anyway, they asked me what I know how to do. I said, I know how to teach Hebrew. I mean, how to teach math, and I can play the piano.
Okay.
So they gave me a control job. Control job meant that I had to lift 200 pounds of iron, put it on my table, calibrate it, measure it, and then put in my stamp. Because if it wasn't correct, it was part of some tanks or I don't know what munition, then you went to Auschwitz straight if it wasn't correct. Anyway, I lifted 200 pounds on my table. I measured it and then put it down near my workshop table. And you had to do 270 a day. If you did 269, you went back to Auschwitz to be gassed again. So my mother also worked near me, and she couldn't do it also because, was she couldn't do her job, so I helped her, I helped myself. I was running back and forth so that she makes her amount that she has to do and my amount, so I was running back and forth. But anyway, that's why I have very strong hands
No
today.
kidding, yeah. That's a workout. Oh my gosh.
You know, I have.
Yeah.
So anyway, that was, every day we marched to the factory through the town. Now, mothers brought their 4- and 5-year-old children, and they brought bags of stones, and they showed their children how they have to aim at us.
Oh my
How
God.
they have to throw stones at us. And if the child didn't catch, didn't aim well, dada, she had to try again, and so that they had to aim at us.
That's insane.
Now imagine that this is how the mothers brought up this generation.
Yeah.
They can't even help it that they feel the way they do,
Yeah.
because imagine to bother to come to middle of town and to bring bags of stones with their children to show them how to. That shows you that Hitler wasn't alone.
Exactly.
The whole nation was with him.
Yeah.
I don't know whether he hypnotized them or whatever he did, but everybody was for it. Now in Auschwitz, there was a little cubic hole in the glass in the gas chamber door, and there were Germans who liked to see how people suffocate. That was their hobby.
Oh my God.
That was not part of their duty.
Right, they just for fun.
And then
Oh my
the
gosh.
commandant of Auschwitz had a hobby. He was tying one a rope to one barrack and into another barrack, and he was hanging newborn babies. He was mesmerized by the fact that they were not heavy enough to suffocate, And to this day, I hear those babies crying. They were crying, so the naked babies, they were shaking, terrible. And he was hanging them, and then he gave them an injection to die.
Oh my God.
And that's what he did all day. That was his hobby.
Wow.
Whoever brought him a baby, got extra bread. And people were so hungry that they did everything for bread. Now, I still couldn't do it, but some people were doing it.
Yeah.
And so this was, to this day, I see the flames of the crematorium, I was on the 3rd level of the bed, and from my bed I could see there was a little hole that was called window. I could see the crematorium flames, and they were yellow, and they were, but I'm not exaggerating, and green and lilac. And to this day, I cannot, all night, I want to close my eyes, but you can't.
Yeah.
And I hear those babies crying.
Yes.
These are the two things I can't shake.
Yes.
Even though I had many, many inhibitions, I should also tell you that in Auschwitz, people had all kinds of lice, and I washed myself with chlor, with that disinfectant powder that they had in the bathroom. Summer and winter with cold water, I washed myself, and I washed my dress every day, and I wore it, and it dried on me when it dried. In the winter, it was all ice. But I washed it, and I never had any of those things. I washed it every day and washed myself every day in cold water. Now, the people there used to say, oh, the nut is going for her ritual bath.
Okay.
Yeah. Because, nobody did it.
Yes.
Nobody wanted to feel cold, and
Yes.
so... And I remember that the neighbor used to ask my mother, is your daughter normal? tell me that I could give her half of the bread. I tell you, nobody could stand not to eat the whole bread because you were so hungry.
Yes.
Mothers stole bread from their children. You can imagine that? Mm-hmm. Now they say that mothers ate their children, but I have never seen it. I only heard. So anyway, this was the life in Auschwitz. Wow. And that's how I escaped, actually, as I told you. Mm-hmm. I would have never been able to get out of Auschwitz. They would never select me. Now, the reason that I really missed the selection, mm-hmm. you know, when you arrived from that cattle wagon, mm-hmm. You had to run, you know, and my father and grandfather told me that I have to say that I'm 18 years old because mm-hmm. If not, they would kill me. Yes. Now, I was so worried that my father and grandfather told me to lie. I have never lied before in my life. Mm-hmm. And in the cattle wagon, it was a trip that could be done in 2.5 hours. We went 7 days. It took us, and in the 7 days I was only worried, how will I be able to lie, and how will I be able to look in the mm-hmm. Eyes of the German and say a straight lie. Yeah. And I was worried that my father told me to lie, mm-hmm. you know, all my life. I was 10 years old, it was different. Yes. And when I arrived, I really felt that everybody lied to me. They said everybody is good, everybody is just, and nobody lies, and government is always right, and you have to abide by all the laws. That's why we went like lambs to the gas chamber, because we were brought up like that, to be obedient, to be good. And I felt that they lied to me. I was so disappointed, you know. I felt differently than these grown-ups. You know, when you're a kid, you are much more impressed, and everything is more engraved, you know. And I wanted to play in the sand, because I was a kid. So it was really rough, the arrival.
I can imagine.
I cannot tell you that feeling, no matter what they show. I don't know if you saw Schindler's List. You did. Well, that is a movie, you understand, a utopia that never existed. I cannot even imagine Schindler, how he could take out people who were already processed. Once you were processed, you were not a person, you were one piece. When they wanted to tell you, come over here, they said, let the piece come over here. You know, you were not a person. I don't have a number, because whoever was in that exterminating camp in Auschwitz, they were going to gas, and it wasn't worthwhile to put a number in either. Now my aunt, for example, she was selected to work immediately, and she has a number. We were in the same place. So that was Auschwitz, and that was Heinichen was. There was the general of the camp in Heinichen, in that ammunition factory, was a beautiful lady. She was black. For a German to be black is very unusual. They're usually blonde and blue eyes. She was black, and she went to church every Sunday, and after she came back from church, she always tortured one of the inmates, either to death or half death. That was her entertainment for the day. Wow. So one day, it was my turn, and she was tying my fingers to the bed, and they had this leather strap with a steel stud at the end that had like nails. You know, it was round, and the nails were coming out all over. And she decided she is going to take my nails off. She wanted to make an experiment. She wanted to see if I can work without nails.
Oh my God.
So she took off my nails one by one. It was, you know, it was she aimed and the nail went in, and she took the flesh and the nail at the same time. And I tell you that I have never had such pain in my life. And she told me if I am going to be quiet, she'll do it fast. If I'll be screaming, she'll do it slowly, and it will hurt much more. And she took off all my nails. I was bleeding, and my mother, and then I collapsed. And my mother wanted to throw some water at me, but she said, no, you let her be. If she can get up, good. If not, let her die. So, and evidently I got up, and I worked next day with those nails. They were only complaining that the steel got bloody, because I was bleeding, you know.
Yes. Wow.
Because she took off not only my nails, but my flesh underneath, the whole thing.
Yes.
Terrible. It was the greatest pain I ever had in my life. Never. Sometimes I think when I'm very numb, and I couldn't think of anything else but the pain,
Yes.
And it's also like hunger. You couldn't think of anything, only hunger.
Yes.
So now when I'm very numb, I think everything else is okay, just my legs.
Yeah.
But I cannot think of anything else but numbness. And that reminds me of the concentration camp. Because only there did I have that. So after all of that, they were, when the Allies were coming near, they put us on a train, and we went partially because all the tracks were bombed, everything was bombed apart. So then when the tracks were bombed, we had to get out. We walked 3 days, 32 kilometers a day, without food, without drinking. We came to a field, and there was grass. We attacked that grass, we ate it, roots, earth, and all. And it was the best thing I ever ate. So that hill became black, So that's what we had after 3 days. And then we went further. Now, there were some people who just couldn't walk anymore, and they either died or they were shot on the spot. So there was a trail of dead people. Nobody cared as we went along. So came to a point where I said I can't walk anymore. So the German had the gun at my temple, and my mother said, don't shoot her, I'll carry her. And she didn't carry me because you couldn't drag your bones, never mind yourself.
Exactly.
But she was dragging me along, and to this day I have here some wounds that do not heal, over stones and everything. She was dragging me. She dragged me for 3 days. As I said, mothers stole bread from their children, food from their children, and she dragged me for 3 days. That was something.
Yes.
That's why I wrote the book.
Yes. You're such a strong person, Miss Fani.
And when I was separated from my grandfather, they said I was holding his hand because I was very close with him, closer than to my father. And they cut me off. They said, men and women go separately. I said, he's not a man, he's my grandfather.
Right.
But that was the last I saw him. I lost 137 people in one night.
Wow.
They were all gassed in one night. But anyway, I said, what do I need a second dress for? I usually wash it, I wear it, and it dries on me. And I cannot imagine what a burden it was to have a possession. You see, you didn't possess a rag, never mind a dress or anything. You didn't have anything for so long that, and when we were liberated, I also didn't tell you the end. From 1,500 people, 7 of us got to the destination. and I was one of the 7.
Wow.
So imagine that 1,493 people either died or were shot on the spot.
Amazing.
So look at the percentage. 7 people made it to the destination. And when we got there, I had typhoid. When I ate the first time, I had typhoid fever, I had tuberculosis. And at that time, it wasn't curable, tuberculosis. And we were liberated by the Russians. They didn't have an aspirin. My mother found some rhubarb in a field, and she was cooking it over and over, and drank the syrup, and that's what cured me from typhoid fever. Now, when I was liberated, I weighed 28 pounds. I was 5'7", 5.7 tall, and 28 pounds I weighed. You can imagine how skinny I was.
Oh my God.
So when we were liberated in Theresienstadt, that was a model camp. They left the people in their own clothes with their families, and they were cooking. They had some houses. Now, some of the people that were there, you know, we were so hungry, we went begging around for food. And the way we looked like the pest. They didn't want to let us in. They threw out the potato peel through the window. And we picked it up, we ate it with the earth and everything. It was delicious. This is my first husband. He died of a stroke. He didn't die of the stroke. They killed him in the hospital.
They do that, yes.
I was his physical, occupational and speech therapist for 8 months, and he was okay. He got pneumonia. When he went to the hospital, he was in the ICU for 6 months. He got every infection from the ICU, and the 18th infection, they didn't have an antibiotic for, so that's why he died.
Where did you meet him? When did you meet him?
When he died?
Oh, when you met him. How did you meet him?
Oh, when I met him. I was 13 and a half years old.
You were 13 when you met your husband?
Yeah, he came. Namely, our house was the only kosher. I don't know if you know what kosher is.
Yes.
Kosher house in that part of Czechoslovakia. And you know, he was a rabbi, so every person who wanted to have kosher, he wound up in our house. We always dined with 32 people.
Wow.
We were only 3, but we always dined with 32 people. And I should also say that my mother's best friend was the president's daughter. So we had all the political people and high society.
Yes.
Yeah.
And you were quite a stylish woman yourself. I don't know if
I
You
was
were
really
beautiful.
once very arrogant. I have to show you.
You still are. You're
please.
the most fashionable woman that I see coming into the clinic.
They
This
used
is
to tell me I'm like Audrey Hepburn.
yes, beautiful, absolutely beautiful.
And my husband, my second husband, he was crazy about making pictures. And I have about 10,000 pictures, and these are my only memories that I live with.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
So anyway, he came, and when he came to our house, and I said that my father is in the library.
Yes.
And he said he didn't come to see my father, he came to see me. I couldn't imagine what on earth he's coming to see me about. Because I was a student, I went to school, very, very diligent student. And I was interested only in knowledge and in studying. And anyway, he came, he was courting me for a while. And I also should say that my generation died. I didn't have, I couldn't really relate to anybody because they were all grown-ups. I was a child, you know. And later on, so I never really could be talking like all my schoolmates, they all died. All my friends, they died. So And the boys the same way. So my husband was 16 years older than I was, but he was okay. He was very young at heart. And he really helped me to get over my inhibitions because I didn't want to love or anybody or anything because I always loved, so I want to love.
Yes. Yes.
He helped me a lot. He was an angel.
Yes.
And he died, I thought it was the end of my life. He made my life beautiful, and I really had a wonderful life. He bought me a St. John dress every day, and his head size was my waist size, so that's how he was able to tell whether it could fit me.
Yes.
And he was an angel. He brought down the stars from heaven. And he was, my father died right away, 4 years after the concentration camp.
Yes.
Because he had cancer of the kidneys, and even though we came to America and he had the best treatment, but there was nothing for
Yes.
cancer. A very, very smart lady, very intelligent lady.
Yeah.
By the way, my first mother used to lecture in humanities and literature. She was called all over Europe in universities. She really had what to say. She was very intelligent, terrific lady. I used to always tell her that you care more about the others than you care about me, because she was very often away, and I was more with my governess than I was with her. I had a German governess because at that time that was the fashion of the year, and they made sure that nobody talks to me who has an accent. She was from Berlin, and I had no accent in German, and maybe that's what saved me when I came to Mengele and I said I am already 18 years of age. I'm sure he didn't believe me. He just kicked me to the right side. Because he heard German like he spoke. You see, all the other Jews, they were from Poland and from all over. It's very bad accent. I spoke like them.
Right.
So that saved me several times in the concentration camp.
Yes.
Like one time they were selecting my mother to go to work, and she ran back because she wanted to be with me. She didn't want to leave me. And Mengele was beating her. There was blood coming from her back, and I couldn't stand it. And I went to him and I said, please leave her, she's my mother. Now, usually what he would do, he would torture one in front of the other or kill us both. And this time he said to me, but of course, and he let her go. Now from then on, the whole camp thought that I was Nazi because he didn't kill me, and from then on they didn't dare to talk in front of me.
Wow.
Because I was called the Nazi kid.
Yes, wow.
Yeah. So anyway, but he let her go, and that was an impossibility. Usually, what I have to tell you one thing that I had seen that happened, like all the pregnant women, they were all killed right away, and one must have passed the selection, and she had a baby in our barrack, and was a baby boy. The one that was in charge of the barrack had to tell Mengele that we have a baby.
Yes.
So he came, he congratulated her over the baby. He said, oh my God, you have such a beautiful baby. He took the baby, he tore off one arm and tore off the other arm, tore off the two limbs and threw the torso on the floor. The mother fell over the baby and died. So they were both just barreled away to the
Thank God.
just to the crematorium.
Yes.
Now, if I don't see it, nobody would even know.
Yes.
Nobody would tell. Now, Mengele, he had a little blood splattered on his boots.
Yes.
He cleaned it off with his leather gloves, and he went his way like nothing ever happened.
Right.
Now, as I said, they had orders to follow. This, what they did, was not part of the order.
Right.
This was done private and,
Yes.
and enjoyment.
Yes.
So this is what I'm saying. It's not only that they followed orders, but they enjoyed what they did.
Yes.
They enjoyed to look at people suffocating. Imagine what a hobby.
Yes.
And to hang newborn babies.
Yes.
And they say he was a good father of 3.
Right.
And he went home every night and he ate and slept.
Right.
So
Yeah. Amazing.
nothing.
You were saying, Miss Fanny, that the women didn't menstruate.
Menstruate. No, they gave us chemicals in Auschwitz so that nobody menstruated. And this is why I couldn't have children after that. Because I didn't menstruate yet, and by the time I got it was very late,
Yes.
because it was delayed.
Yes.
Now, the reason that I have so much trouble with my spine
Yes.
is because the disc that grew there with wonderful nourishment
Yes.
cannot support very well the rest.
Yes.
And it keeps swooping down, and it keeps pressing on a nerve.
Yes.
I had 2 spine surgeries, 6 epidural injections, and now I'm going for acupuncture. It's hell.
Yes.
My doctor recommended pelvic traction, and that really helped me
good.
immediately.
Good.
They dial it, they with some belts, I don't know how it works, but they pull me a little bit, and that worked immediately.
So what are we watching here?
Let me show. This is what my husband made me movies out of certain places that we were and certain activities.
Yes.
And this is me.
Wow. You were quite an athlete.
And I want to do that's 56 degrees that water. That was me. You see, I was young
Very
and
beautiful.
smoked all the time.
And you smoked all the time.
7 years in my business to be able to make it.
Wow.
But thank God we finally made it. We
Yes.
had 320 employees. After I worked for Greenspan, the financial and business world was open for me
Yes.
because it was something.
Yes.
I was the first woman that was her secretary and the first immigrant she ever hired.
Wow.
This is in Japan.
Wow.
This is in Bahamas. Niagara Falls. But it will start. This is the skyline of
That's
New
a
York.
beautiful shot there.
That's how I used to go to work. When I look at this, I think it was never even true.
Yeah.
Because look at me today. Once upon a time I was somebody.
You still are something. Are you kidding me?
Today
You
I
know
am
what
passé.
No, you're not. You know what you did? You wrote a beautiful book, and you're sharing your story with people who don't remember.
I am writing the continuation.